I'm Cameron Manheim, and I'm very happy to be here. I'm sure you've seen my work on The Practice and the Elvis story. Cameron actually called me and said that she got a job, and would I fill in since I know Maria, and I said, well, I got a job too. And she said, oh, you did? And I go, no. But, because I didn't think so. Listen, could you fill in? And I said, of course. And the funniest thing is, I hadn't read the book yet, but I quickly downloaded it, and I couldn't put it down. So it was a treat. I mean, I love this book so much, and I'd rather be in the audience with you because I've never done this before. So let's lower the bar, okay, for me. And I'm going to let Maria start off by reading a chapter or so.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here, and thank you to Cheri. I mean, I have to say that Cameron is one of my dearest friends. Our boys were born a day apart. She knows me like no other. But Cheri actually knows my entire family. She went to visit them last year down the shore in Jersey for a day, and they stayed for a week.
There was a lot of food.
So she knows the ins and outs of the Bello family. I also want to thank Ted. I mean, these talks are something that you don't really get in LA, and every time I come here, I come to one of the talks, I'm completely inspired, and I'm proud to be here tonight. So thank you for having me. And I love your red shoes so much. I'm going to read a bit from one of the chapters from my book, Whatever Love is Love, Questioning the Labels We Give Ourselves. Chapter 4. Am I a bad girl? Have you done something you're supposed to be ashamed of? I am watching the married man I had an affair with for 2.5 years kissing another woman in a movie. I heard he was actually having an affair with the actress in real life. Now I know how his wife must have felt back then. At first I wasn't going to turn on the movie, but that night, after being alone for many hours, I decided to turn it on. I was riveted. The man I'd been involved with hadn't even appeared yet, but I was loving the plot and the lead female character and the actor who was portraying her. She was strong, beautiful, and brilliant. Everything out of her mouth seemed true. She fully inhabited the character. And when my still married ex-lover popped up on the screen, I didn't instantly think, they're having an affair. I thought, he's a really bad actor. At the time I was involved with him, he was the love of my life. We met years ago at an industry event. When we first shook hands, I was taken with his good nature and all-American good looks. I also noticed his gold wedding band. I did not have a band, but had been in a serious relationship for many years. By the time I met him, that relationship was on the rocks, mostly because of my inability to commit and my continuous search for the one. At that moment, I didn't even consider the man a potential, with the ring and all. It wasn't until a week in that I was overtaken with a desire akin to a tsunami. A few weeks later, we began an affair. Within a week, my current relationship began unraveling. My heart was opening and breaking into pieces at the same time. I had lied to the man I was with, hurt him terribly, and felt shame and remorse. At the same time, I was allowing myself to completely give in to my desire for the other man. These were complicated feelings, all of them smashed up together. After our first 10 days together, he went back to his suburban life, and I went back to the carnage of mine. I got an email from him that read, "My love, I can't do it. I can't leave my kids. As much as I love you, I cannot do it. You deserve to be loved fully and without reservation. I'm sorry to savage your heart again. I truly am. I am still in love with you and will be for the rest of my life. Goodbye, my girl. Yours, me." I got this missive, about 200 similar ones from him over the next 2 years. Our letters were always filled with drama, breaking up and not being able to keep away from each other. In retrospect, it was a lot like the good old-fashioned romance novels I read as a teenager, minus the storybook ending, of course. Here's what our relationship looked like for years. He would sneak away to Los Angeles or me to New York for a day or two. We would meet at my house in LA, a hotel in New York City. We would immediately find ourselves in bed, and after hours, we would make great meals together and laugh and talk and share. And then we would go back to bed. It would have been a month or a week from the last time we saw each other, but we couldn't help seeing each other again. And even though every time we said it was the last, we would proclaim our love. He would tell me that I was the one and he would never leave me. And for a few days, a few weeks, we would live this dream. And just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. I knew the relationship was finished a few weeks before it officially ended, when my friend John and I sat in a cafe in Venice having lunch. John liked this man and liked that I was happy with him. I remember John saying to me, "He's nice and not an asshole. But if he wasn't great in bed, would you still be interested in him? What if he was in an accident and his dick fell off? Would you still want him?" Now sitting on my couch, watching the married guy on television, I hear him calling the actress with whom he is having an affair, "sweet baby." And I can't believe what I'm hearing. I remember a scene like this years ago in my kitchen in Venice. "How's my sweet baby?" he would say, walking into my kitchen and taking me into a big bear hug. "I'm good today, baby. How are you?" I would ask. And I was good. I felt strong and resilient in his presence. Well, let's see. I've just spent the night with the love of my life, my favorite playmate, my sweet baby. I think I'm pretty good. And now this sweet baby wants to vomit. This is who he is and might always be. I wonder if the other actress knows yet. The definition of desire is to want something you do not have. In a marriage or other committed relationships, especially after years together, each person seems to know the other inside and out. They have the person, so it may become difficult to desire them. Some people seek sexual satisfaction outside their relationships, even though they may be totally sure that they would not leave their committed partner or family. The truth is, we have no idea what goes on in people's bedrooms or in their heads. Some people place more value on partnership than sex, but sex in secret holds appeal for many. Adrenaline does not equal love, but it doesn't negate it either. Many of my heroes had had sexual relationships outside of their committed relationships, but does that make them bad people or take away the fact that they have contributed to this world in an incredible way? Many wives of men who have cheated stay with their husbands, and certain people are appalled by that. I'm not. I understand. To me, sexual desire and love are two different things. That certainly doesn't mean that people inside of long-term committed relationships don't have great sex. I know some who do, but not many, if I'm honest. Those who do often say the same thing. It comes and goes. And maybe it does, but let's be real. For many, it just goes. And maybe it does, but let's be real. And then what happens? People either start to lie and look outside of their relationship, or they find a way to make it work. I was told by a therapist many years ago that I just needed to heal my daddy issues, and then I would be able to have guilt-free sex with a man I was not in love with. She was not a very good therapist. It has been written that all but 2 of our presidents have had affairs. I'm not sure I believe that number, but it sure makes me very curious. JFK, Martin Luther King, and so many others who made the world a better place were considered adulterers. Does that make them bad people? And it seems to me that the people who point fingers are often just as guilty, if not more so. I believe that the book 50 Shades of Grey became a worldwide phenomenon because people were finally given a chance to explore their fantasies in a safe way. Many authors have done the same throughout the years. If you were turned on by 50 Shades of Grey, go read Miller or Nin or Hemingway or Roth or Edna St. Vincent Millay. Most people will never admit to their sexual proclivities. You usually have no idea what your partner is thinking about when having sex. Could be he, she is thinking about kittens and feet. Unless you are in someone's bed and someone's head, someone's sexuality should be no business of yours. So a call to action to all therapists, please keep trying to isolate the gene that makes all of us confused about our sexuality. But maybe we aren't sick after all. Maybe there is no cure, and we should just accept that sexuality is more complicated and fluid than we've been led to believe. Whoever has a handle on sexuality, our unconscious, and why we are often blinded by desire, please let me know. So does my having an affair with a married man make me a bad girl? If the answer is categorically yes or no, then we're all missing the point. Yes, I hurt people I loved, and I take responsibility for that. I also found a freedom in expressing my sexuality that I hadn't felt before. I began to understand that for many people, sex does not equal love, and that our primal physical drive isn't necessarily bad. Sometimes two people can just admit their connection is not sexual, but they share the same values, ideas, likes and dislikes, family and friends. And at a certain point in life, sexuality doesn't seem to all that important. I'm just at the beginning of my romantic relationship, and we're still in discovery phase. Will it be that way forever? Probably not. As much as we hate to admit it, people do not stay the same, and neither will we. Relationships change constantly. I think if we are conscious enough, we can accept the change without throwing out the love. I am grateful to say that most of the people I've been in romantic relationships with remain my friends and family. And I've been on both sides. Partners of mine have had affairs. Though it was incredibly painful, I eventually and quite quickly saw the humanness in all of it. I sometimes find the most difficult thing is to live in the gray area of life, to live in the indecision, to listen to all of the voices screaming inside of me to be heard with no judgment. I could never figure out if I was a good girl or a bad girl. Seems life would be so much simpler with clear definitions. At times I think I've figured out something only to be surprised in the next instant by who I am and what I'm capable of. Claire and I have a collection of original black and white photos above our bed. They are stunning portraits of Georgia O'Keeffe, Beatrice Wood, Ernest Hemingway, Colette, Henry Miller, Edna St. Vincent Millay, Anais Nin, and other writers and artists that we admire. They have many things in common, including being people who brought to light in words and pictures our deepest feelings. They were also people who were passionate, had affairs, families, and lovers. Some were bisexual, some were just plain sexual. Some lied and some did not. But they all lived their passions and desires. They didn't assume that sex, family life, friendships all had to be the same forever. So let's not pretend that only bad people have affairs or make decisions based on desire and animal passion. At least let's throw out our inclination to point fingers and name names, and instead accept that we can never know what is in someone else's head or how we might turn if overcome with feeling.
After I read that chapter, I had a very interesting and kind of profound question for you. Who was that guy? I got the message, but seriously, who was he? No, I know.
I have to say that most people I wrote about in the book are like especially the Prince Charmings and all of those, were like a mashup of many people I've been with, Cinderella or Prince Charming. And it was the same thing. It was mostly my projections onto
Right.
them of my hopes and dreams.
It's like, you know, you're casting a play,
Oh, exactly, the play in my head.
and you are going to be Prince Charming.
Exactly.
He didn't come to practice. He didn't come to rehearsal.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. When I was sick, 2 summers ago, I found I had under my bed 100 or so journals from when I was 13 years old up until present day. And the first one was a green notebook that I had hand-drawn hearts. And the first poem went like this. It's funny you say that. It said, "I'm just playing the part of a girl in love, playing the part as it should be done, writing in words to the unwritten script, saying what I've heard come from the other actor's lips."
Right.
Who knew I would be an actor sitting here talking about these romantic inclinations?
But that's what I thought about when I was reading it. It's kind of like, you know, we cast a play from our childhood, and it's everybody that we knew, how we were emotionally connected to them or not connected to them, and then we recast that play as adults, but just with different people. And I just so related to, you know, the Prince Charming thing, and, you know, you're gonna love me till I'm fixed.
And you'll make me whole. You'll make me complete.
You know what? This whole thing started with the New York Times article, and I just want to know what inspired you to write that article, and what happened after you did.
2 summers ago, I was very ill, and I was in my hospital bed, and I looked up, and next to me were my mother and my brother and my son and Claire and my son's dad. And I looked around and I thought, these are all my partners in life. Whether I do homework with them, sleep in the same bed with them, have a child with them, I have the love is all the same. And so a few months later, I was at my son's dad's 50th birthday party that Claire and Jack and I threw, and my parents came out, and Cheri's friends with my parents, my whole family, by the way, so she knows all my stories. And I looked around this room, and I felt so much love, and in an hour, I wrote the New York Times article because I was so interested in this idea of partnership and family and labels, and how do you really put a label on what a family is, what a partnership is, and how those labels seem to be outdated. And my son, and the article was about Jackson, who you know well, and when I told him that I was in a romantic relationship with a woman who was like a godmother to him, my dearest friend, he said, "Whatever, Mom, love is love. Shout it out to the world." And that started my journey. And when I wrote that, I was so proud just to proclaim my family. It was called Coming Out as a Modern Family. And I had no idea at that point how many modern families and unconventional partnerships were out there. But within an hour, we had 273,000 Facebook hits. And people from all over the world were writing, "I'm a whatever, and I never knew what to call it. I have a whatever family. I'm a whatever religiously." So I realized there was a larger conversation to be had, and I felt a responsibility to continue that conversation through this book.
Everybody wants to feel normal. And what we've found is, you know, to me, it just reiterated, this book reiterated, there is no such thing as normal. But I think we grew up feeling like, what's wrong with me? Why don't I fit into this or this, that? And it's so funny because Kinsey in the 50s wrote a whole report about it. It's like, whatever happened to that? Like, he was onto something. You know, the poor guy.
Yeah, traditional labels just don't seem to fit anymore, especially for this younger generation. I really feel like we need to expand our definitions, not only about sexuality, but about everything in general. You know,
But it's funny because people almost want permission.
Yeah.
You know, but the more people that do come forward and write their story like you did, I feel like it gives people the freedom that they don't have to fit a label or in a box. And I just thought, you know, how many people are going to read this and have read it and just felt like,
Do you know how many people I know that, 50% of Americans are single. And I started doing this thing when I met people saying, do you have a partner? And I would see some people go, not really, because they only thought of, if they had a partner, it was a romantic, committed relationship. And I said, but don't you have partners in your life? And then they would go, oh yeah, my best friend who I talk to every day, my dog. This is really, it's a big thing for a lot of people, that their dog, their cat, their animal is their family. And I started to think, who is significant in your life and who you're committed to? Maybe that's your partner. My partner for 5 years was a 70-year-old man. We never had sex, but we talked every day. We cried on each other's shoulders. We shared everything. We were seekers. We read the same books. And just because we weren't romantic, did that make him any less of a partner?
And people that have been in a, monogamous, a heterosexual relationship for years, it's almost like, wow, they've got it,
Yeah, right.
They've got it all. I forced my dog to be my partner in every way. The other thing I wanted to ask you about.
Wait, may I say something about that, Cheri? Not about you and the dog, about something, which is I've been so blessed since the article and since the book. So many people are coming to me and sharing their stories, and that's really exciting. And one woman said to me the other day, she said, I was married for 25 years, but it didn't work out. And I was like, 25 years? It fucking worked out, And that was pretty good.
Marriages, right there. That's 3 Hollywood marriages, 25 years.
Exactly, and there's something about knowing that relationships are fluid and they are not static. Our lives aren't static. Our relationships aren't static. I just realized this with my son, who was 12 at the time when I wrote the article. Now he's 14, and we went through some bumpy times in the beginning of this year because I realized I was still relating to him as if he was 12. And he wasn't anymore. He was a young man of 14, and we had to figure out how to relate to each other in a new way. And as soon as we start to think that relationships are static, I think that we get stuck.
Yeah, your son is so beautiful. And this is off
the record?
No, but it's really funny because he seems very, very connected to your emotions. And if you're all right. Like, he's very compassionate. And I've met him, and he's like, hi, how are you? And me being from Philly, I'm like, what's your angle? But he looks right in my eyes with a big smile. Just hi. Kids out here, they have so much personality, and, not like when we were kids, like, they're so allowed to express themselves, almost too much, if you ask me. But he was just so expressive.
But Cheri, because we grew up in the same area, we both grew up in Philly, we're both like, traditional families. Weren't your parents like, you say hi to someone, you look in their eye, you're nice to them? I mean, it was just kind of like some parents that I know who are like, if they don't feel like saying hi, they shouldn't say hi. My father would be like, really, motherfucker? It's like, no, that's not going to happen. You have to, say hello to someone.
My mother would stop being friends with someone if they talked too much about their kids. I was like, she went to her friends at Dell's, and I go, how was, at Dell's? And I'm like a little girl, and she said, she talks about her kids too much. I'm not going over there anymore. And I'm like, I'm so sorry for you. None taken. But anyway, what I related to Jackson was, it seems like all the beautiful things that Father Ray and your friend John saw in you, it's like you created in Jackson a little Father Ray and John. Oh. The beautiful things and how accepting they were and saw the good on you when you didn't see it yourself.
At all.
And I feel like Jackson is like a little bit of them. He's very concerned and, and it's an example of how you raised him. Because, you can't hide everything from your kids.
No, I tried, believe me.
Yeah. And some of the things that they say, I think, make them have character and understanding and compassion.
Yeah.
So I think you did a good job on that one.
And I think Father Ray, my son was named after my partner all through my years at Villanova University who was an Augustinian priest named Father Ray Jackson. And he was the guy I had lunch with every day in the cafeteria where my grandma was a salad bar lady. He was the guy whose, shoulder I cried on, who every day we talked, and he introduced me to great thinkers and ideas that I didn't know ever existed. And he loved me just the way I was. And I was studying women's rights, and I was going to be a women's rights lawyer working at the Philadelphia Women's Law Project. And I took in acting class as an elective at the end of my junior year because a cute boy that I liked was taking the class, and I was like, all right. So I took the class, and as soon as I did my first monologue, I knew that's what I was supposed to do. And I went to Father Ray, and I was crying, and I said, Father, I don't know what to do. I thought I was supposed to be of service to this world in some way, and acting seems like such a selfish profession. And he said, Maria, you serve best by doing the thing you love most. And in that moment, I was set free.
And
really.
You have been so much of service. Aside from acting, I know you don't like this label, but humanitarian with all the things that you're involved in. But this is what I loved. I was thinking about, I grew up going to Catholic school in Philly, like Maria, and that whole chapter just cracked me up. I related to it so much. And what was it like for you reclaiming your Catholicism?
It's been really interesting. Over the last week, even at my university, when I spoke at the university, we had some potential protesters from the St. John Newman Society who were saying, evil demon, because I was basically saying, in every great religion, there's room for many voices. And I do believe in marriage equality. I do believe that women should be priests. I do believe in contraception. And I do believe in a woman's right to choose. And is that okay? And to still be Catholic? And what I came to, my book is really questions instead of answers. I have no answers for anyone. These are just questions I asked myself. And I realized that Catholicism is my heritage. Mm-hmm. It's the lens through which I relate to God. And when I got sick in that first moment, I didn't say, Om. Mm-hmm. I didn't, do an eagle spirit, like all these things I used to do with feathers and such. I reached for my rosary beads that Father Ray had given me. And I went, Hail Mary, full of grace, because that was my heritage. It's something that was deep in my soul. And I have to say that the Catholic Church is changing so much with the Pope now, who's all about inclusiveness and focuses on peace and poverty as opposed to who's sleeping with who. And I am proud to reclaim that label.
Yeah, growing up Catholic it was just so...
Thank you.
Yay, Catholicism. It's so funny because when you grow up Catholic, I grew up around so much chaos that when I was told as a little girl, Jesus loves you no matter what, I was like, what, really? And I drank it in.
Yeah.
I built an altar in my bedroom. I really got into it. And it was so funny because, I don't think my mother, she was not available in any way. And then she put a poster, full-size poster of Jesus Christ underneath my sister's bunk bed. So I stared at it every night.
Well, I think Jesus, Muhammad, Yahweh, Buddha, whoever you want to call.
That'll screw you up, kids.
That spirit.
Looking at Jesus. And then over the years, every time my sister would toss and turn, there'd be cracks, and I would just think of how I sinned, to make the cracks. And it didn't, no, it wasn't really a good thing. And but then I just always thought, he's watching over me. I think my mother was like, here, you watch over her. She's too much for me. But
do you know how Cameron says she's Jew-ish? Right? That she, her heritage is Judaism. That's how she raises her son. But Milo gets on stage for his bar mitzvah, and he's like, let me be clear right now. I don't believe in God. But he believes in service, and he believes in this heritage. And I think any religion or any spirituality based in love is the God that I believe in and want to belong to.
That's what I had trouble with growing up Catholic was, wait a minute, if you're not this, then you won't get into heaven.
Right.
And it just didn't, make sense, but I think it was a way of manipulating a young mind to be fearful more than celebrate the love. It was more about menial sin, all the sins.
Big sins.
There were so many sins.
Little sins.
Yeah.
Big sins.
But yeah, that was the first bar mitzvah I ever had gone to. And they're long, gang. They are long.
Really long.
Jeez. Anyway, don't tell Karen I said that. You know what? I love the story about the golden shoes and how you connected everything. I mean, I look for signs everywhere. But this was really strange that this kept coming up. Tell me about that, the golden shoe story, the link.
When I was in New York City, I showed up there with 2 trash bags filled with clothes and $300, ready to make my way. And the first year I did a Domino's pizza commercial, and I thought I was on my way. And my parents still have a tape of it, and the cap is down like this, so you can barely see my face. It was like this big, but they still have the tape. And I was getting all of these auditions, and I went to a big Hollywood one, and I got home to my little cockroach-infested apartment on Christopher Street, and my manager called me, this was before cell phones, and said, not only did they say never send her back to us, but your agents called and fired you as well.
Oh
and I was
God.
devastated, and it was snowing, and I was running down 23rd Street in New York City in my army boots, and I saw something glittering in the snow, and I turned around, and it was a gold shoe. It was literally a pump, a glittery gold pump. And so I sat down in the middle of 23rd Street and took off my army boot and put on the shoe, and it fit. It fit me perfectly. And I said in that moment, I was like, thank you, God. It's a sign. This must be a Catholic thing. It's a sign. I'm on the right path. I'm supposed to do this. And years later, I took the shoe with me all over the place. I won awards and was a successful actor and had this great kid. And I decided it was time to let my shoe go. And I went to New York City and I put it on this piece of cardboard. And I put it in front of my hotel with a letter underneath that said what happened to me. I didn't say who I was. I just said, this happened. And if you find the shoe, you're going to have this incredible luck and all your dreams will come true. And I wrote on the thing, I said, if you are a size women's 9, please try me on. If not, move on. And I remember driving away, and I started crying. And my driver said, and I told him the story, and he said, do you know what you give out comes back to you tenfold? And I'd heard that many times, and I'm not sure if I ever believed it. A month later, Cameron, Milo, and Jack and I were on the beach in Santa Monica, walking. Suddenly, Jackson runs up, Mom, I found your golden shoe. It was a ballet flat, a gold ballet flat, like all distressed, that came up on the shore. We were like, this is crazy, right? And then the next thing you knew, a month later, I was with Bryn, who you know, my ex-boyfriend, now dear friend. We're walking out of the Hollywood Bowl. I see something on the sidewalk. I almost trip over it. It's a gold spray-painted UGG. I was like, what? I walked 2 feet further. There's a gold spray-painted sneaker. A second later, there's a gold spray-painted high heel. I keep going, 5 shoes. 5 golden shoes. I found out later it was an art installation, but whatever. I picked them up anyway. And I have them all on display in my house. And seriously, whenever I always happen to find gold shoes as I go along.
When I read that story, I was just picturing when you put it back out there, I got a prostitute walking down the street. There's that gold shoe.
Exactly.
But I love that story. I love that story so much.
And really, it's what my mom taught me, that there are signs everywhere, and we only have to keep our eyes open and look for them. And I do believe that life is magical in that way.
Speaking of Jackson, do you think you're a good mom?
Oh, God, that's a question I ask myself every day, and it's a chapter in my book called Am I a Good Mom? And for everyone here who is a parent, you know, if you have your own children or animals or nieces and nephews, that, you know, someone that you are committed to and have to take care of, I think we're constantly asking ourselves that question. And I thought today that maybe the best thing I can do is to be my most authentic self and show Jackson that he can be that too. I used to think that I had to be the perfect mom. You know, I write in my chapter about this that when he was 6 years old, I was driving in my Prius and someone cut me off, and I was like, closing out the window and screaming, and Jackson was like, Mommy, why are you doing that? Why are you cursing at that man? And I was like, oh, God, he caught me. I'm not the perfect mom. But now, as he gets older, I realize that I am the perfect mom for him.
Right. Yeah, because I don't think, if anybody ever said that they were, I think that is just a normal question to be a parent.
I do too.
My mother never asked that question.
Really?
The 70s.
They were too busy working. Same with my mom.
Yeah, okay. Let me see. One of my favorite chapters is Am I Enough? And the whole celebrity doctor thing. That cracked me up. I mean, oh my gosh, I just so identified with going to every kind of alternative healer or, I mean, I'm an Oprah Super Soul Sunday person,
Yeah.
and it's, I mean, I actually had a shaman asked not to see me anymore. You know, and I was like, I didn't even sleep with him, and he doesn't want to see me anymore. But it was like everything that you did, I did.
Yes.
And then you go to this celebrity doctor, $600, and I loved that. Like you said, that he called you a psycho. No, a psychotic without the P. And you walked around pointing a dildo at everyone. Now, I did that, but I was just trying to make a point. But I can't believe what he did to you and how he shamed you and how you left. You paid $600 for him to tell you that there was something was wrong with your face. Like,
yes.
And my question was, did you ever get your face fixed? Because it's offensive.
Cheri's talking about the last chapter in my book where I say, Am I enough? It was like I was at the finish line in my book, and I was waiting for God for an answer, like, how am I going to finish this book? And so I decided, okay, I'm going to quit smoking. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to do all of these things. And for 4 days, I was like in my bed. And I opened this book and this magazine, and it was like a new celebrity doctor. And I have been, 20 years since my 20s, searching and doing like goddess circles and traveling around the country doing like Native American rituals and I met like 3 born-again Christs and 2 born-again Buddhas. At one point, I actually went to this circle where there was a man who apparently was an alien who had these steel hats made where he could speak to the aliens through his hat. The pyramid.
Yeah.
The pyramid hat. Oh, you've met him too.
Yes.
Yeah, he was fantastic.
And I love that he walked out of the bathroom with a bar of soap. What is this?
Yeah. I knew
What do
after
you
that.
call this?
I knew
Is
after
this
that
your
I was
God?
done. I knew after that I was done. So I surprised even myself when, just as I said, when I was finishing my book, I was like, oh God, I'll go to this guy. He'll help me and tell me what's wrong with me and fix me. So I ended up going to this doctor. He told me that he never sees patients on Wednesdays, only cancer patients, but he would see me. So I was like, oh my God, I'm really special. So when I got there, after this whole bizarre thing, at the end, he was trying to figure out what was wrong with me. And every time he said something that was wrong with me, I was like, yes, yes, that must be it. That must be it. And at the end, he said, because I kept agreeing, so he didn't know what else to say. So he goes, you know what's really wrong with you? And he pulls out this book, and he goes, your face is crooked. And I was like, really? Is it that crooked? Like in Star Magazine, they'd be like, oh my God, she has like a really screwed up face.
Maria Bello doesn't look like this anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And I walked out of this office, and thank God Claire woke me up that day when I was like, oh my gosh, you know, maybe he's right. And she laughed in my face. She was like, what are you talking about? And what I remembered at the end is something my friend John Calley said. And, you know, we're always looking for something outside of ourselves to make us whole. And the truth is, we're already whole. And John said to me once, he said, do you want to know the secret? And I said, yes, of course. If there's anyone who can tell me the secret, it's you. He was one of my dearest partners. And he said, the secret is there is no secret. Everyone walks around thinking there's something wrong with them, and everybody else knows it. But the truth is there's nothing wrong with you. Mm-hmm. You're perfect just the way you are. And that was another one of those moments when I woke up and I realized that it was me and my connection to God that was the most important.
That chapter, I was glued because when John describes the moment that of enlightenment that he had,
yeah.
And he was saying that it was just a typical morning, and he was taking a walk, and he looked around and he started to cry. And he realized that he was just part of the universe. And I've heard of people having epiphanies like that, you know, where it's nothing happens. It's just something. And I was reading it, and I believed him. I believed what he was saying. And he described it so beautifully as like an explosion, like an explosive orgasm. And I love that your first question to him was, how long did it last? And I love that he said, about 3 minutes. I love that that was your question, because as soon as I heard the word orgasm, I was like, ooh, how long did it last? But have you ever had an enlightenment orgasm? Or should I say, are you still kind of searching where healers and doctors are concerned? Or have you really made peace with that whole part? Because I'm just curious, you know. I say, like, now, from all the research that I've done and healers and everything, I've got it all together. And I just go with my friends who are going to see healers just so they have someone to be with. But are you still kind of on that journey of finding that enlightenment, or, you know, or going to doctors, or are you really feeling like you got the message?
Well, I have to say that I've been blessed with so many extraordinary teachers in my life, and what I realized in the end, you know, when I was trying to figure out my book, I realized it was more about questions than it was about answers, and that I don't really have any answers, and my hope is that by asking my own questions about the labels I give myself and the labels other people have given me, the labels I give other people, that other people will start to question their own labels, really. And
oh my
so
gosh,
I still have the seeking, and I will always have that, and I enjoy curious people, and I'm curious, and at the same time, I finally get nobody outside of myself is going to make me whole.
The feedback from this book, people of all cultures and ages are embracing this book. Why do you think that is?
I think we're on the verge of a whole new age. I don't mean to be like the age of Aquarius. It's just seeing this younger generation, and you know what you've just seen in Arkansas. You know, the day my book came out, you know, marriage equality was before the Supreme Court, and I think this younger generation is actually leading us.
I think so too.
We're not leading them. They're saying, what label? Love is love, basically. And I am proud to be part of that conversation.
Well, you have a chapter that, am I LGBT or
W.
And I think, as you've discovered, like, I think all over the news, we're inundated by gender identity questions and sexuality. And I feel like we're learning so much more, even by, I hate to say it, but you know, you see, like, as I like to call him, Bruce Kardashian. But, you know, I felt like that was such a teachable moment. And for someone his age, I think it just teaches you so much. And your book answers so many questions without.
Well, I don't know if it answers questions, but
without preaching.
But the truth is that Facebook last year added 51 new gender options and orientations besides male and female. And I looked it up, and I'm at least 15 of them. I promise you, if you look them up, you're at least 4 or 5. There are these labels are outdated in so many ways. We all have our way of moving in the world, and sexuality is really complicated and only a little piece of it. And I always like to think of one of my greatest heroes. She was an African American transgender AIDS activist. Her name was Marsha P Johnson. And I met her in a very curious way that you read about in my book, a very sad way. But as I got to know about her, a judge said to her once, "What does the P in your name stand for?" This is one of the transgender women who started Stonewall. She threw the first shot glass against the wall, and they said it was the shot glass that was heard across the world. So he said, "What does the P in your middle name stand for?" And she said, "Pay it no mind, because it's nobody's business anyway." And I thought amazing. She was the first whatever. I call that a whatever. She was the first one to proclaim herself a whatever.
I mean, that part in your book of you seeing her.
Yeah.
I don't want to, for anybody who didn't read the book, but that blew my mind, and you didn't spend a whole lot of time on that. But I was like, how did you ended up seeing her?
Yeah. Well, that's why again, a responsibility. I think that things happen for a reason, and those signs now.
Can you tell them what happened?
So I had seen Marsha P Johnson. I lived on Christopher Street in the West Village in the early 90s. And she was so flamboyant and fantastic, but I never got a chance to talk to her. She was a little nutty, and she was always giving things to everyone. That's what I remember. And she always had these flowers, these crowns on her head. And one day I was sitting next to the Hudson River with my boyfriend from Long Island, and we were about to break up, and I saw something in the water, and it was the body of Marsha P Johnson. And the police at the time deemed it a suicide, but there was a huge poster campaign in our neighborhood. All of her friends and everyone in our neighborhood was saying she was not suicidal. This was an amazing woman who started the first hostel for transgender youth, and who was giving so much. And finally, in 2012, the New York Police Department reopened her case and called it a murder, which I'm so happy about. And now we're in the midst of producing a movie about her.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so great, because when I read that, I couldn't believe that you were sitting there with this guy, and you see something going. Oh, that was, that was dark. But that's amazing that you're doing a story, you're doing her story. I love that. Can I play her? No, I'm kidding. What has been so far the most interesting question that you've been asked, except for mine?
I always go back to Catholicism, because it's been such a big thing in the news. Whenever I am talking about this book, people are really fascinated with this. A priest came a couple of days ago to Philadelphia. I was speaking at a bookstore in downtown Philadelphia, and he had written a book on sexual abuse in the Catholic Church, and it's a novel. and the main character in the novel is a priest who's gay. And 73% of Catholics, this is another statistic, believe in marriage equality. And it's very interesting to me, this tide that it's really changing, and it's the question or the topic that so many people are fascinated with. I thought people would be fascinated with bipolar illness, but it's such a thing that people aren't really ashamed of anymore. It's sort of a label that we're getting used to. But the whole Catholic theme seems to be a big thing.
Isn't that funny? It's because everybody's wondering, wait, are you a Catholic? Because especially in Los Angeles, it's more about, I would say religion is just a place where spirituality, however you're connected, it's taught through. But the whole thing, like over the past few, 2 decades, with everything, the controversy around the Catholic Church, it's, a lot of people don't associate themselves with, who grew up Catholic, with Catholicism.
Yeah, that's right.
And I have a problem with it too. Yet I still pray the way I did when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Because it's all
your
I know.
heritage. Yeah.
But I can see why I loved reading about how it affected you. And I also kind of liked where you still have an affinity for it, a closeness to it, even though you've learned so much more. Because there are very learned, progressive Catholic priests, and our new Pope is really bringing us forward. But it's so funny, religion is such a hot button topic.
But also the book is about whatever questions you ask yourself, and really, really getting down to, do the labels you give yourself empower you and set you free and shine a light on the beauty of who you are meant to be, or do they disempower you? Labels should never make you feel judged or afraid, and in the end, I think that the only labels you have are the ones you give yourself.
That's right. That's right.
Thank you.
Should we want to start taking questions from the audience?
What do you think the differences are between the culture of Americans versus European in terms of sexual acceptance? I mean, it was very brave for you to come out and talk about your modern family, but it seems in Europe, modern family is just kind of a way of life. If it's couples having affairs or bisexuality or transgender, can you talk a little bit about the difference, do you think, between the two cultures?
Nope. You read stories all over the world. I read the statistic the other day that 87% of cultures, human beings, are not monogamous. Who talks about that? I'm not sure. So you're right in the fact that, so we know that some European countries, I'm not going to say all of them, that this is a thing, that people accept that you have affairs and you have a family, but people don't really talk about it so much, at least not out in the open, especially not in the United States. And but a lot of cultures all over the world, it's an acceptable thing. My friends and I, Claire included, who's here, 7 of our friends went to Kenya with our kids, and we were sitting with the Maasai women, and we wanted to have a conversation with them. And we started with really serious topics, what's it like living here? Do you get to work? How did you have your baby in the field? What do your kids do? And the next thing you knew, we were talking about other things, and they were telling us that they had lovers and a husband. They were like making fun of us, because they're like, really? You don't have lovers? And the next thing you knew, we were passing around a rolled up napkin because they asked us, what size do we like a man's penis in our country? And so everybody was going around the table, passing this thing around. And so I think there are these common threads that women have. Whether it's been in a camp in Bosnia during the war, I've been fortunate enough to travel to a lot of these places. Whether it's in the middle of Bhutan, whether it's in the middle of Africa, women, we always seem to talk about 3 things: children, boys and sex, and makeup and clothes and hair.
Yeah, and I think that the differences between European and American is just, it seems like America just has more guilt, you know?
Maybe, and we don't, we don't talk about it. It's like the chapter I read. It makes people really uncomfortable, but the truth is, more than 50% of married people have affairs. So let's talk about it. Let's start talking about that and what that is and what that means, and instead of, kind of sweeping it under the rug and pretending that that doesn't happen.
I love that your grandmother, Bachi, actually said to you, and you were sweeping dirt and under a rug, literally, and she said to you, she yelled at you, Maria, don't sweep dirt under the rug. It's harder to clean later on. It's just harder to clean later on. And I was like, smart Polish cookie.
Hi, I have a question over here. Hi, Maria.
Hi.
I haven't yet read your book, and I'm very excited to do so. So my question is, what was the impetus for writing the book? Was it a healing of a healing nature? And then through that journey of writing the book, how has it transformed you?
I'll have to say again, when I wrote the New York Times article, it just came from such a place of pride and love for my family, and I had no idea how people would take this. Most of the people read the article and then found out it was me who wrote it, and I did feel a responsibility to write this book, especially going through all of my old journals and asking questions. And the transformation came in asking the questions, and asking the questions I was able to get more honest with myself and share that honesty. It's what someone said to me the other night at my old university, Villanova. They said, you can finally walk in your own shoes, or you claim yourself completely. And I can't say that for sure. I will say the journey of writing this book, it's almost like I'm 48 now. I just turned 48. The first half of my life was in these journals and in this book, even though they were only tiny stories about my life. I never meant it to be about my life. It was more about questions, and it's personal essays that open up bigger questions about the world and how we all think. And but now I feel like so much of that has healed. Like that part I have closed up and put away in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Is there another question?
Yes, happy belated birthday, by the way.
Thank you. I can't see you.
I'm right here.
Hi.
I just discovered we're the same age.
Oh, really?
Yep,
When's your birthday?
May 30th.
My
Turned
brother's is May
48.
31st.
Sorry?
My brother's is May 31st.
Oh, okay. Well, happy early birthday to your brother. I hope it's not too much of a forward question, but
Ruh-roh.
I would love to know how you and Claire transitioned from being friends to more.
What do you think?
Well, I mean, how long had you been friends? Just how did that metamorphosize?
I find it really funny when people say, how long have you and Claire been together? We never knew what to say. Like, was it from the first moment we met and just had this like huge connection and just talked and wanted to be together? Was it the first time we, kissed? Was it the first time we had sex? Like, what does that mean, actually? When someone asks me about my son's dad, about Dan, how long you've been together, I say, we're still together, and we always will be. Why do we seem to think that the first time we're with someone is when we have a sexual romantic relationship, and then when that part ends, we're not with them anymore? Because guess what? We're still with them, especially if it's the parent of your child.
All right, but let's get to the sex. No, but you know what? That story is so beautiful in the book and poignant, how you went to New York and you went to dinner and you had to tell her something. I mean, really, when I was reading it, I was like nervous. And it was beautiful, like you had known each other for a long time and you had been friends, and then you just discovered that you had these feelings and you had to tell her. I thought it was beautiful.
Well, I didn't say this part, actually. So when I tried to tell her, and I was at the restaurant, I was like, I gotta tell you something. She was like, oh my God, are you pregnant?
Because I know
Or do you have cancer? She was like, this.
I know you tend to have affairs. Are you pregnant?
Another one?
My question is a little more, I hope it doesn't sound offensive, but it's like I did live in South America for a long time, and where affairs are very, very common. The cell phone use there's like triple, because you have your wife, you have your girlfriend, and you have that other girl. And I'm not kidding, it's true. It's like literally, and I had plenty of, I think that my question is, and I feel like I see this a lot here, I'm new to LA, what are your ideas about narcissism and the fact that there are a lot of people hurt, and it's like, yes, it's common, but what are your ideas about that other person that's having to sit through that? Because my experience was of the women that were the wives, it's not pretty, and it's quite painful. And so I feel a little sad because I do feel like narcissism is a part of that, and it's great for us to explore what makes us happy, but at what cost to community, I guess.
Mm-hmm. I understand. And I've been on the other side as well. I've been the girlfriend, pseudo-wife who's been cheated on, and I guess what I'm talking about is a basic primal desire and the facts and statistics about it and how often it's happened throughout history, and having that conversation, as opposed to, every politician standing up and saying, I love when Larry Flint did this, when the whole Clinton, Monica Lewinsky thing was happening. Flint said, I'll give anybody $1 million to point a finger at a Republican and find out if they had an affair. Meanwhile, like 3 Republicans who were pointing their fingers at Clinton ran quick. So I think that it's not Democrats or Republicans, it's not conservative liberals, men, women. People have affairs. Let's be honest. Some of us have been hurt by it. Some of us have hurt people from it, from doing that. But let's start talking about it. How about that? How about that's part of building community, is being honest?
I'm the real Cameron Manheim. And,
Yay! Where is the real Cameron Manheim?
And I know we have to wrap this up, so I just wanted to end on a really important question.
Get up here.
And I know that, thank you, Cheri, for pitch hitting for me today. I got a job, so thanks so much. But they still want me, even though I'm 54. Here's the thing. Well, here's the important question I want to end on. I know you didn't want to label yourself, a good mom or a bad mom, but really, who is the best single mom you know?
Oh, here we go.
I agree.
Maria, I just want to tell you, I've been in the back for 45 minutes. You are more elegant, more radiant, more articulate, and more graceful than I've ever seen you. I am so proud to call myself your friend. Claire, Heidi, all the people here supporting you, Cheri, and to see the two of you up there together just begs one question. Did you call each other this morning and decide what to wear?
No.
Let's give a round of applause for Maria and Cheri. It's been an amazing, amazing evening.
Thank you all.